Learning Zilu Nishmas Etta Ahuva Basakim Maseches Avodah Zarah, Perek Beis Mishna Zayin. So earlier in the Perek, we learned about things that are Aser Ba'achila Ubahana. In Mishnah Vav, we learned about items of a guy that are Aser Ba'achila but not Ba'ana. And this Mishnah says items that are even Mutter Ba'achila. The first Elu Mutar Ba'achila, and the first one is Chalav Shechilvu Akam B'Yisrael Re'eu. That while the guy is milking, a yid sees him. The Gemara explains, even if it's a case that it's a herd of a guy and there's goyish milk nearby, but when the guy stands up, the yid could see him, even though when he sits down, the yid doesn't see him, but that causes a mirses. The word is that that's the heter over here, that it's mirses, that the guy is afraid to mix in the tamei dika chalav with the kosher chalav. The second thing is hadvash. The Gemara explains on honey, there's no chash of mixing in yayin because it ruins it, so there's no yayin nesach. There's no bishul akum because it's nechel k'moi shu chai, like we said yesterday, that anything that you could eat as is before cooking, then there's no problem of bishul akum, and there's no problem with putting it in a goyish pot because it will be nice in tam l'fagam and it's mutter. The third thing in the Mishnah is davdaniyas, which Rashi explains is clusters of grapes. Even if they're dripping, there's no problem of liquid being machshir. In other words, normally dvash is considered one of the zayin mashkin, which is machshir lekabel tuma, make something roi to be mekabel tuma. But this dvash, he's not nicha with it. Or rather, like yayin, this yayin, the way Rashi learning that it's grapes. This yayin, he's not nicha with it. The fourth thing is kvashim she'in dark and laseis l'seichan yayin v'chaymet. So this is the opposite of what we said in the last Mishnah. Over here, we're talking about that it's not the derech to put wine and vinegar in it, so that's it's mutter. Utris she'ina trufa is also the opposite of the last Mishnah. It's the fish that's not cut up. It's nicker, and the Gemara over here explains what does nicker mean. Kol sheroish v'shedra nicker. You could tell from the head and the shedra of the fish that it's a kosher fish. The Rashi explains because dogim nikarim biroishan bein tamei litar shatmeim rishayim chadim. A dog tamei, its head is pointy, and also ein lahem chut shedra. There's no chut shedra. So if you have the roish and the shedra, so then the Gemara says legabi the guf and legabi the tzir is a separate discussion in the Gemara, but legabi the guf of the fish, then it'll be mutter if you're makir the roish, the head, and the shedra. The Ramban asks a question that we don't find any place b'chibra go'inim that they use this siman of being makir the roish and the shedra. And the Ravid Taka argues in Rashi, and it says that it just means b'tfias ayin. You could tell that this is a dog tahar. The next thing in the Mishnah is tzir sheyesh ba daga. It's the opposite of what we said in the last Mishnah. If it has this daga kalvus, then you know it's tar. Ola shel chaltis, as opposed to in the last Mishnah we were talking about the actual sharpness was here. Here it's just a leaf, and therefore there's no problem. The next one in the Mishnah is zeisim guskois hamagulgolim. If there's olives that are very slippery. So the question is, if these olives got slippery because of wine that's mixed in with it, so Rabbi Yesi Omer hashluchin asurin. If they're so soft that when you hold them, the pit falls out, so then we assume that they became soft because of yayin nesech mixed into it. The last one in the Mishnah is chagavim haboim min haslula asurim min hahefsik mutarim. If you have grasshoppers, so if they're in front of the baskets in front of the storekeepers, then it's aser because we're choishish. The Gemara said that he's mezalef, mitneish mezalef yayin aleim. But if it's in the storage, so then he wouldn't have put wine on it so early. They only put the yayin etzach on it when it's in front of the stores. The Mishnah ends off v'chein letruma. That by truma you have this musig also, that if it's in storage, there's no chash. Over there it's talking about a kayin that's chashid to sell truma with chulin, but in the storage place, he's afraid. Esuse mirsus, the Gemara says, savar shami bei rabbanon umafside limina. He's afraid that the rabbanon are going to find out that he mixed in his truma and chulin, and he's selling it a mix, and therefore, and the Rabban are going to go and they're going to be mafsid his whole oitzer, they're going to be mafker his whole oitzer, so therefore, he is not going to mix in chulin and truma while it's in the oitzer. Mishnah, Perek Gimel, Mishnah Aleph, Kol atzlamim asurim nei shehin nevdim pam achas b'shana divrei Meir. Meir says that all statues are aser because they're served one time a year, and the Gemara says that he's chayish lemiyuta, and therefore even in other places where it's not served, he's geyser atu the place that it is served. However, the chachamim oimrim einay aser, it's not aser because they're not chayish lemiyuta. Elo, it's only aser if we know for sure it's served, and that would be kol sheyesh biyadei mako, if the statue is holding a stick, so that's a sign of that he's a roides atzmai tachas kol ha'olam kulei kemako, that he leads over the world, like Gemara says, or if he's holding in his hand a tzipor, which the Gemara says is teifis, it's atzmai tachas kol ha'olam kulei like tzipor, he acts like a bird that rules over the whole world, or he's holding a kador, a round item like a globe, so then he looks like they're making the Avodah Zarah seem as if it's teifis, it's asmai tachas kol ha'olam kulei, which the Taisus brings from the Yerushalmi, that Alexander Mukden went up high up until he was able to see the whole world that it's round, and therefore we know that the world is round. So dafka, if he's holding these things, then we say that he served the Avodah Zarah it was served as an Avodah Zarah. Even if it's holding anything, even like a splinter, the Gemara says, or a rock, afilu tzara, afilu kisam, then it would be aser.